Okay, so I have this thing I feel kind of compelled to do as a kind of addendum. It has mostly to do with data structures, except for one thing, and that's a database. A database is not a data structure, and this is something I did for myself in my head just a few moments ago. And that was try to give some kind of definition of certain data structures that might be related to the sort of thing you want to do. Like, and intentionally do it wrong. Like, get the answer wrong so that you, like, have an answer of, like, how your mind wants to stereotype some stuff you don't understand. And I don't know how to explain that any better, or why I want to tell you about this, or whatever. Maybe it'll become clear. It's sort of an addendum. Okay, so here's my completely wrong Devil's Dictionary definition of a list. A list is the most loosey-goosey data structure for dealing with, let's just call it, items. Like, it's loosey-goosey kind of for the, for reasons similar to why, lichens are the first thing that comes in and transforms barren rock. I would guess that one of the key things that people use lists for is when they have data they know is really, really chaotic. And in one thing if I'm correct about that, one thing I'm surprised I don't see is like see a lot of is like, something called list processing outside of computer programming. You'd expect to see that. Or like, list processing used when you don't even know the program you want to write. If I'm sort of right about this, I would expect to see things like that, papers written on subjects of that sort. And who knows, maybe there are. An array is like a list, only an array, it's kind of secretive about it, but it wants to be a spreadsheet when it grows up. That's an array. It really wants to make, it's like, you lists are too loosey-goosey. I mean, guys, don't you just want to be a little bit more like, a spreadsheet? Like, I was just thinking like a spreadsheet. Yeah, like a spreadsheet. Like, I'll do anything you want. I'll go as loosey-goosey as you want, but I'm telling you right now, from the get-go, from the start, I want to be like a spreadsheet. That's an array. A hash table, I'm really lost on hash tables because, for this reason, I want to think of a hash table as a visual representation of a list in all it's like, it's kind of like it's like a spreadsheet you haven't finished filling out yet. Or rather, that's its key feature, is it sort of puts everything out like a spreadsheet, visual like a spreadsheet, and so that the parts you haven't filled in yet. It takes a list data structure and does that. I know I've got that, like, I'm probably, this is probably what I'm most wrong about. And then, like, every time I start thinking in that direction, I go, hold it. What, is there this thing I don't know about where like computer programmers need visual representations of shit all the time? Well, I mean, like my father was a system designer for Intel, so I know that when programmers get together, I mean, they'd rather draw a picture than use words anyways. And that the first thing you do, but it's just like I've never seen a hash table. It sounds like some kind of visual representation of the fact that lists are chaotic. They're the most chaotic form, the most chaotic data structure, from what I can tell. And then I realized that I kind of had like arrays and databases defined the same way, because or very close to the same way as like related to a spreadsheet. Like basically a spreadsheet is a pretty printed database with except that a database, you can do more with a database if you don't need things to look pretty. I mean, you could probably take a database and put it. You could have a program that took a database and put spreadsheet stuff in a spreadsheet. But a database is not even data structure. And so, but I realized that there was a remarkable similarity between my totally messed up, complete garbage definition of a database and my completely messed up, absolute garbage definition of an array. And I looked up just now databases and arrays, and sure enough, that turned out to be a good idea. Because I learned some, I kind of got that one a little better. And then I also have this question. Okay, hold it. I'll have also this kind of question. Like, when I try to look up, because of this guess I have, like do computer programmers use like databases in programming? And I'm like, dude, businessmen use databases. It's one of the 4 or 5 things you put in an office suite. And I'm having trouble like connecting those 2 dots. Like I remember that, what were the things you always had in the office suite? You had the word processor, the drawing program, the database, and the spreadsheet, of which databases are the one things I've never used in my damn life. I assume that a database is an ugly spreadsheet for the most part. It's a spreadsheet, only ugly. It's the non-pretty printed version of a spreadsheet for the most part, only there's probably more functions you can do with a database. But like, if you had a database that you didn't need to see because you had a program that you knew was just going to do the exact same damn thing with the data every time, that would be exactly what I would need. I need to find out whether databases are this thing that businessmen use, but that computer programmers use for a totally different reason. I essentially, I assume that each item in a database is like a file, or rather that if you took a row or a column of a database, who knows which, and that would actually be a program that had a template for how to manipulate its own kind of files. And that's what I need. That's what I'm saying. That's what I need. I need a program that does a Markov chain, and then for storage has a template on how to manipulate the data of a file, or should I say a file that has a template for how it's manipulated. I don't know which would be the more proper way to say that. A standard way of manipulating a file. I need a program that does two things. A Markov chain, which, by the way, I'm guessing, that Lisp programmer was right. If all you're doing is a Markov chain, and especially if you're just storing it in RAM, sure. I've never seen anything that said, oh yeah, and one of the things that's great about Lisp is how great it does file manipulation shit. I've never, ever seen that. That's a paper. If there's a paper out there about that, I haven't seen it yet. Because I need a program that does two things. It does the Markov chain, which is this mathematical process on whatever the data happens to be. Usually we think of Markov chain, most people think of Markov chains in the word. It's certainly one of the most popular and interesting things to do with Markov chains. For instance, because when you do a word-based, remember I told you there was these word-based and letter-based Markov chains? When you do a word-based Markov chains, it will give you complete nonsense that duplicates the style if you have one author of that author. So if you put in Robert A. Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, you'd get complete nonsense in the style of Robert A. Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. You could literally show it to a guy who didn't know what a Markov chains is, didn't know what he was looking at, but who knew Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land by the back of his hand, and show him, the nonsense generated by a Markov chain, and say, what is this? And he goes, I don't know, but it looks like complete nonsense in the style of Robert A. Heinlein. Specifically, he might even say, specifically in the style of Robert A. Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. It all depends on a variety of factors, if the name of one of the characters appeared and you only showed him one sentence. If the name of one of the characters appeared, he'd know. And certainly if you showed him a book-length Markov chain he'd know, it looks like this. He'd go, this is a weird thing. It looks like it's in the style that Robert A. Heinlein would use. It's clearly absolute nonsense, and it's pretty clearly stuff from Robert A. Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, because, of course, if you had a whole book-length thing, the name of the characters of Stranger in a Strange Land would appear, and the characters of Time Enough for Love would not. Just as an example. Okay, so very interesting stuff. Markov chains, word-based. So, and by the way, there is on letter-based Markov chains, you could say that if you say that style duplication is an inherent property of Markov chains, then I guess on letter-based Markov chains, you could say that, as bizarre as it sounds, that a letter-based Markov chains does syllables in the style of words, and just as occasionally you'll get a sentence that actually makes sense, if you do enough Markov chains. So too, in a letter-based Markov chains, you will occasionally get words. So is there like these two different, like are databases something that programmers were using and like the boss was looking over the shoulder one day, or what? Because I'm trying to imagine anything used in offices that would also be a part of computer science. For lack of better terms. But yeah, it turns out there really is a relationship between arrays and databases. So much so that people who actually know some computer science, at least a little bit of computer science, will ask questions. Hold it. What is the relationship between databases and arrays? Because they're both like spreadsheets, but uglier. Wow, this was intentionally not going any place in particular. Like I'm hoping, like somebody will go, here's something. What I'm hoping for, the reason I did this is in hope against all hope, that somebody will go, oh, here's something you were almost right about, because I knew from the get-go, everything I was saying was completely wrong. You're completely wrong, of course. And it might help you help me, on the off chance that anybody wants to help me. And by the way, that's all the information I want. I don't want a good book on the subject of data structures. I've been trying to read a good book on the subject of data structures for the last 20 years, and I will keep trying. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that part where here's something you got almost right, and especially if it's in an interesting and or important way, because I knew it was completely wrong, and that was the whole purpose of this. And this has been this addendum. Thank you very much, and it'll probably be the only addendum. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.